Let's talk about depression. Recall healing and depression. What can we do in recall healing with depression? I'd like to say depression has been 30 years of my life. So I know what I'm talking about. And when you work on the emotional trauma behind depression, normally it's a combination of feeling of guilt and devaluation. We feel devalued because we cannot do something. We feel devalued because somebody is better than me. In depression, there's always someone better than me, and I always feel like crap inside of myself. Okay? The combination of these feelings, devaluation and guilt, combined with, for example, an impossible fight, that means an important frustration in my territory, creates the mood of depression. And in biology, the mood of depression comes from the brain itself. We know when we study recall healing, level 1, 2, 3, it's a long story behind what I'm telling you right now. But normally, when we experience a drama in our life and that we cannot resolve the problem, our brain adjusts the body that it controls to elaborate a solution. And eventually, we experience a pathology in the body or a behavior. In depression, instead of downloading the conflict into the body, the brain takes itself as a target, which makes let's say, the male and female hormone in a 50-50% of assimilation, which creates a kind of inhibition of action in the person. This is why, at the moment of depression, a person never feels to fight, never feels to attack, but always feels to withdraw, to hide in a corner, because underneath he feels terribly depressed, guilty, and a person who feels depressed and guilty feels miserable inside. So can you fight? So you feel terrible, and you withdraw, and it's not fun to be depressed. But you have people who are depressed all their life. But the difference between a depressed person and a winner who wins everything like a big fighter is that the depressed person will bury everybody at the end of his life. Why? Because when you're depressed, you don't fight. And when you don't fight, you save your energy. And at the end, you bury everybody who fought all their life. Okay, so finally, who's the real winner? We understand that depression in our system actually is an adaptation to different difficulties of life that we cannot overcome. And then eventually, you slowly in your life as you go forward, you have some chances to overcome these problems. But some people have depression very solid, and yes, of course, they need the help from the healthcare professional with a good medication, but many people don't have the diagnosis of depression, but they have the mood of depression. And these people, when they work on the conflict, quite often they get out of the mood of depression. Every time after that in their life, every time they experience something that makes them feeling frustrated about a problem, they go back to the feeling of depression, the mood of depression. But it's not the real clinical depression. But it's a mood of depression that makes you feel so crappy that you think life is like that. But what I like from the help of recall healing into depression work is that we understand that depression is a program of the brain to help us to survive some important stress in our life. But from the moment you meet with someone and you talk about the problem, normally in 1 hour you're out of the feeling of depression. And then you can be okay for another month, 2 months, sometimes 6 months, until you experience another frustration in your life, which brings you back into the mode of depression. Depression can be an oscillation like that all our life. Once the brain has adopted depression as a survival mechanism, the brain is not stupid, it keeps it. And then when I need it, my brain brings me back to the feeling of depression. And as soon as I'm depressed, I avoid the fight that could kill me. This is why we say somewhere depression is not fun, but it's a very nice mechanism of the brain to get me out of trouble. Why depression is so important as well is that depression is the secondary condition behind most of important conditions. Why? Because when we have an illness in life, if I have cancer, if I have chronic fatigue syndrome, if I have whatever pathology, I'm not functional like any other people in my life. So I always compare myself with people who are good, who are very healthy. Just comparing myself brings a feeling of being devalued, guilty, crappy, miserable. And the depression comes as a feeling, as a mood, companion of the primary condition that I have, cancer or chronic fatigue. This is why when you work with a client that has cancer, some people with cancer, you ask them on which pathology do they want to work first, on depression or cancer? They mostly say, oh, depression. Why? Because depression, it's like they don't give them the drive to go forward with life. It stops the movement. It's almost, you're not dead with depression, but you look like dead. It's like life has no light. Huh? So in order to help to heal many, many conditions, always focus on the work on depression, and then you contribute to open up the door toward the future. And you know, the other key word for depression in biology is absence of future. I don't see the future, I don't see the light. Why do I want to heal from my primary condition if I don't see the light? And when I don't see the light, I don't see the future, my brain shuts down the corticoadrenals, shuts down the production of cortisol. I don't have drive to go forward. How can I heal if I don't have the drive to go forward? So the brain does not make people heal if they don't have a future to live. In hospital, it is full of people who want to heal, but they don't heal. Because the brain has nothing to do with I want to heal. It doesn't work in biology. I work because I'm obliged to heal, because I have a future, I have a goal. Long time ago, about 30 years ago, there's a mother, she has 4 kids. 2 teenagers and 2 kids of 5 and 6 years old. She was diagnosed with 3 cancer. But in her mind, she couldn't even die before her last kid is 20 years old. She survived with her 3 cancer for the next 15 years of her life. And when her last child got 20 years old, inside of that year, she died. When you study the history of medicine and such a cases, you find many cases like that. When you're driven, when you have a goal, it's amazing what we can achieve. So why don't we use these goals, this future, to optimize the chance of our clients to heal from their problem as well.